Forrester with another episode of Metal on Metal. Today we have a preview of an upcoming GTS Grand Tactical Series game called Race for Bastogne. I'm going to cover the game that I've received. I got a Vassal file with the latest rules. We'll be talking about that. It's a 2-mapper, so not too huge. Covers a lot of days, December 15th to 25th. But because it's during the nighttime, there aren't as many turns per day. So there are 6 turns per game day. One of those is a night turn. Lots of counters, lots of charts, big effects for weather and terrain as you would expect in what is a Battle of the Bulge subset. Let's take a look at some of the units involved. This artwork, by the way, is playtest artwork, not the final artwork. 28th Infantry Division for the United States. You'll find pretty straightforward American units. Although, honestly, in GTS games, we haven't had all that many American units yet. I'm still waiting for Utah and Omaha, where we're going to see more of these guys. Shermans, tank destroyers, armored infantry, no big surprises there. Also Airborne, naturally we know, because this is about Bastogne after all. These will look pretty familiar to you already. Some supporting units, some of these small anti-tank units I haven't seen in quite this form before. Machine gun units to defend the artillery, some other little tweaks, but nothing too shocking. For the Germans, we have 3 main divisions. First of all, the 26th Volksgrenadier. This will look like other German divisions you've seen, particularly in the Greatest Day. I like the motorized engineers, of course. This unit right here is sort of new. These small infantry guns look a little different than I'm used to seeing. And then we have 2nd Panzer. Nothing too shocking. We do have Panthers, which is nice for the Germans. Other supporting units, Panzerjäger, armored or motorized engineers. We got the 88s down here, nothing too shocking. In Panzer we have seen these before in the Greatest Day, so they won't look too surprising. Now, it's 2 maps that are set up east to west. The east map covers the crossing of the Our River, and over here in Hosingen, Clairvaux, of course you'll know this from other Bulge games, you're going to have the Volksgrenadier trying to take over and then follow through by the 2 mechanized formations. The west map has Bastogne. You'll be arriving here from the east over here. Not too shocking, of course. This should be expected. In this race, or it is a race, basically. This scenario is just this slice of the Ardennes battle, or Ardennes campaign. So the Germans will be starting here, trying to rush through here and take Bastogne and exit off the map, while the American forces are trying to prevent that. For the rules, there aren't too many surprises here. You will find some supply rules that will cover Bastogne if and when it gets cut off, resulting in low ammo and some negative modifiers with the low ammo counter. There is a greater variety of Nachhuten and rear guards depending on the unit. So if you see here, the tank destroyers can also shut off rear guards, and the mechanized infantry, and even AT guns. So this gives more variety to the whole sub-game of managing your rear guards and your Nachhuten units. There are some command posts that allow units to be in command at different points that move during the game. Stragglers, as the American units that are overrun in the beginning of the whole 10 days of battle, gather around Bastogne to defend there. And there's some better rules for abandoning transport that I like compared to the Greatest Day. There are events as well. Historical events, there's an event counter. And when it comes out, you check first to see if there are any historical events, and if there aren't, then you get some random events. Nothing too surprising. German air support, new observation posts you can use that pop up temporarily to call in artillery fires. Leaders can be hit. Heroes, there might be single unit surrenders that you check for. Some extra CPs and DPs from intelligence, and Feldersatz, the Germans can add a replacement step. I like this because in some games in the past I felt the random events in the GTS can be pretty huge in their impact on the game. These are much more moderate and aren't going to swing the game one way or the other to a great extent. There is also optional chrome, some tweaks to resolving artillery fire. You can make weather random rather than historical. Wiltz is right to the south of the map, and you can add it on to the campaign if you want, and that's when I think it's the 5th Fallschirmjäger are pushing up. I think that's about right, down just in the southern part of the battle. That's also as a separate scenario with its own separate map. Some rules for Germans, having better sights at night, different American artillery fuses, etc. These you can add in as you need to. Nothing too shocking, and it just depends on whether you like the chrome or not. So let's look at the scenarios. There are 6 plus the campaign. The first one, the first 2 really, are learning scenarios. The one in Wiltz, this is to the south of the map, And it's a nice little scenario. You've got the German parachuters coming in trying to take this town. You've got some German units at the north of there, and then the Americans have to hold out there. It would take two and a half hours to play probably. If you just want an evening with a short game where you want to teach somebody how to play this, an excellent little scenario. And I'm planning to do a playthrough of that so you can see what I'm talking about in a month or so. The second scenario, this is north of Bastogne, and this would involve Germans coming through and trying to break through these two towns. It's also a nice little scenario. To win, each side has to keep both of these towns, and these are reinforcements coming in a bit. And it's pretty dicey how you do that. Should the Germans attack this and then that? Should the Americans send troops up to defend here? Should they all collapse on there and then counterattack? Etc. So I think in a small scenario you have some interesting choices. So I enjoy this one. Hold at all costs, one map in the west. This is the initial attack. You can see some of the units set up with the 26 Volksgrenadiers trying to overwhelm these American defenses and get the panzers running through down this road. And the Americans have to trade time and space for casualties. It's pretty tough, but you'll see with this heavy terrain and digging in, it's pretty hard to pry these Americans out. So it's a challenge for both sides. The Americans do not have enough to hold, but the Germans are on a tight, sort of a tight leash. They have not much time to get the job done, and they can get held up in the woods. The tanks don't maneuver too well around there, so it's actually quite an interesting scenario, I think. The speed bumps is sort of the middle of the thing. The Germans have already broken through. They're heading for Bastogne. Can the Americans stop them enough to allow the 101st Airborne to set up around Bastogne? This is the fifth scenario is in the west map. Here's Bastogne. The Germans are coming down here. They want to try to take Bastogne if they can, but they have rules that they have to get their mechanized formations off the edge of the map. So it's one of those classic things. Should we stop and take Bastogne? But if we do, we might not win because we haven't gotten enough tanks exited. So there's going to be a balance there. This is simply a setup for the siege around Bastogne near the end of the battle. The Germans have a last chance, mainly with the different grenadier formations, supported by some tanks to try to take Bastogne. And you should not be shocked to know there is a campaign. You start here, it's 10 game days, and try to get your stuff off the map and take Bastogne. And the Americans try to stop you. So, what are my thoughts? Yes, more Airborne. I kind of like them. They're good. They do lots of good stuff. I think there's a nice mix of units. I like seeing more Americans than I'm used to seeing. I like the trade-off that you have to think of moving quickly or taking the ground. Sort of the speed and the terrain is quite tough, and you're going to be watching that road network. And you're going to be frustrated as the Germans that you just cannot get stuff moving fast enough. That sounds pretty historical to me. And I would say this really is in some ways 3 games in one. The first game of trying to get across the Our River and break through is its own situation. The second sort of meeting engagement, trying to get through those speed bumps and get past Bastogne, and then the siege or the attack on Bastogne itself. Well, you know I'm a fan of this series. You know I would like to see more of these games come out. I think this is a worthy entry. I'm looking forward to seeing it. So, what are you waiting for? If you're into GTS, let's do it. Get it pre-ordered. Let's get this thing in production. And I'm definitely hoping to see Utah, Omaha, and SAR one of these days soon. But until then, let's play this game as we're waiting.
We also die.